Welcome to Research Creations, and thank you for clicking on this video. In this video, I will be talking about the topic of climate change. The areas I will be covering are the causes and fundamentals of climate change, what are the immediate and long-term effects of climate change, what can the general populace do to stop climate change, and should government contribute in solving this issue of climate change. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and let's get started. To start, how do we define climate change? Well, the word climate change means different things to different people. Some think it is purely the warming of global temperature and the melting of ice caps. Some think it has something to do with global warming. The legal definition even states, a change in global to regional climate patterns, in particular, a change apparent from the mid to late 20th century onwards, and attributed largely to the increased levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide produced by the use of fossil fuels. For this video, let's break the words climate change into their base components. Climate, the weather conditions of an area for a long period of time, and change, the modification of something or someone. This basically means climate change is the modification of the long-term weather conditions in the area. The facts do live up to its name, which I will explain in a short while. To understand the topic, we would need to look at its roots, so let us move on to the causes of climate change. Like most phenomena, there is no singular definitive cause of climate change, but there is one that stands out more than the rest, and it is the burning of fossil fuels. As you can see in this pie chart, the percentage of carbon dioxide in total greenhouse gas emissions from the late 21st century to the early 21st century totals to a whopping 65%. When burned, fossil fuels release large quantities of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and unfortunately, fossil fuels are still the #1 method of generating electricity today. In 2019, the total amount of CO2 emissions stemming from all human activities combined was 43 billion tons, or a little over 110 million tons a day. Another factor that contributes to climate change is deforestation. You may be wondering, why does deforestation contribute to climate change? It is not like cutting down trees would release significant amounts of greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. And you're right, immediate effects may not show regarding CO2 emissions, but symptoms would start to appear not after long. Since nearly 50% of the trees have been cut down already, that number would be increasing with the demand of timber in the population. Trees remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. Fewer trees mean the rate of carbon dioxide removal will decrease. Combined with the growing rate of CO2 emissions, deforestation is speeding up the accumulation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and further worsening the situation. You may be asking, now we know what causes climate change, but how does an increase in atmospheric CO2 levels affect the Earth? Well, that is what I'm going to explain right now. When heat from the sun reaches Earth's atmosphere, some is going to reflect back to space, but greenhouse gases are going to absorb a significant amount of it and re-radiate it into the atmosphere afterward. This in turn heats up the atmosphere significantly. A good example of greenhouse gases absorbing heat and re-radiating it into the atmosphere, or the greenhouse effect as I will call it from now on, is the ozone layer. Ozone, a compound made up of 3 linking oxygen atoms, is also a greenhouse gas, and its purpose in the ozone layer is to absorb ultraviolet radiation from the sun and shield us from its harmful effects to biology. However, too much of a good thing is not necessarily a better thing. If too much carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere, it traps too much heat from the sun and overly heats the atmosphere, raising global temperatures. This is known as global warming. Water vapor is also a greenhouse gas. It forms when water evaporates. Water evaporates at a higher rate when the surrounding temperature is higher, CO2 emissions are heating up the atmosphere, thus evaporating more water, creating more water vapor, and in turn, the water vapor is heating the atmosphere even more. Now we know excessive CO2 emissions can raise global temperatures. So how does global warming affect all the different characteristics of the Earth? So, first of all, the Earth has ice. Heat and ice do not go well with one another. Ice situated at the polar ice caps are melting at a higher rate than ever before in history. When too much ice melts at the ice caps, it is anything but good. Ice is solidified fresh water. When it melts, all the water is just going to end up in the oceans. This increases sea levels, deeming many island nations at threat of literally being submerged underwater in a few hundred years. This graph shows the rate of global sea level rise at around 3 millimeters per year. More fresh water could be incorporated into the ocean as a product of global warming, and could drastically desalinate the ocean, which could affect saltwater marine life, turning into a grave threat to their populations, and coral reefs would just practically go extinct. Global warming can affect humans as well. Warmer air in the atmosphere can take in more moisture, drying up freshwater sources and soil. This could cause water shortages in rural areas and significantly hamper the agriculture industry. Knowing all of this, it is our obligation as a part of humanity to contribute to the act of reducing CO2 emissions. Things you get told by environmentalists, such as being aware of your electrical usage or limit your use of combustion vehicles, are good ways to start. Reducing meat consumption is also something to consider, as the livestock industry contributes to more CO2 emissions compared to all forms of combustion vehicles combined. We can only do so much in the effort to curb CO2 emissions. So should governments take part as well? The short answer is, it depends. Let me explain. The issue of climate change is widely discussed among first world leaders, but we fail to acknowledge the poor third world countries, whom of which have limited resources and can barely even feed their citizens. They are unable to even consider improving in areas such as decreasing carbon emissions. Yet they are the ones whose fate depends on the climate. As a lot of third world nations' major economic source is agriculture, and agriculture is heavily reliant on the stability of the climate, so it is the obligation of wealthier nations to focus on climate change and improve on such things. And in turn, this warrants a secure future for itself and helps out the struggling nations as well. And this is basically it. Like the video if you enjoyed it, dislike if you didn't. Sharing and subscribing to my channel would be much appreciated. Thank you for watching Research Creations.